Hi, this is my bookshelf aquarium setup. It's kind of unusual because there's three tanks stacked above each other, and they all use a Herbie siphon drain kind of teed together into the same return line. So right now the system is off, so this is what the tanks will look like basically if the power goes out, or even if a lower tank fails. No water can possibly drain out of these tanks because the water level in the overflow is below the siphon return, and the water level in the display area is below the overflow and below the return pipe. So basically if a lower tank were to crack or the plumbing were to fail, the remaining tanks would just drain to this level, and that's that. All three tanks have been filled to that level, and finally the sump has been filled right to the top just to give it some room, because once the return pump turns on, a little more water will get moved from the sump into the three display tanks. So I'm just going to turn it on, and you can kind of hear and see what it looks like as the siphons kick in, and then how it's silent after the air has been purged from the siphon drain. So we've got the water sort of pumping into all three tanks now. And then if you look into the tank, you can see it's starting to rise above the level of the overflow, and then it'll sort of pour into the overflow and take over the drain. So the siphon drain actually doesn't flow very much water until all the air has been purged. You can see it starts by going right to the top of the emergency drain. And then in the sump you can see that the air is getting purged out. And sort of the other three tanks are undergoing the same process where the water is above the emergency line. And right now it's really noisy as the air is getting purged, but once the air is out of the drain line, you'll see the sump will become a lot clearer. And then the water level will drop below the emergency drains and everything will get a lot quieter. So we're starting to reach that point. You may remember that the water level used to actually be up here, but now that the siphon is kicked in, the siphon drain is a little more efficient and the water is just trickling down the emergency drain. The same is sort of happening in the three tanks, or the two tanks below the top one. Again, water level just right under the emergency drain. And then finally you can see in the sump, there's no more air bubbles coming out of the return pipes and everything is a lot quieter. That's kind of that. You can see the flow in all three tanks. And I'll just shut everything down so you can see what that looks like as well. So as it shuts down, you can see the water is draining from the three overflows, and then it sort of starts the flushing sound. The water sort of ends up back in the sump. You can see that level kind of slowly rising. And we're back to where we started.